You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow, the Executive Director here at the Audio Information Network of Colorado. So this is a little bit of a celebratory program for us because this marks our first year of this podcast. So we're excited. So in September, we're starting our second year. And this month we are starting, I think, appropriate September. I know kids have been back to school in August, but September back to school, thinking about our kids. So we are starting this month of September with the topic of parenting. And Aaron Huey is joining me today. He spent a decade of directing children's camps and teen rites of passage events, empowerment programs all around the world. And he found that there were numerous cries for serious help for parents that had struggling teens. And so he realized he needed to turn his efforts towards teens that were struggling and suffering from drugs and alcohol and substance abuse and some of the behaviors related to those addictions. So in 2009, he opened Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center to work with kids and their families. And in an addict in recovery since 1998, he knows the results of at-risk behaviors as well as recovery. And so he's made it his mission to create real change. And since then, his treatment center and workshops have helped thousands of families through school talks, free parenting webinars, and his podcast, Beyond Risk and Back, Colorado's #1 parenting podcast. So Aaron, that's a lot. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for reading all that, Kim. I'm very impressed with him. I'd like to meet him.
Yeah. So, Aaron, I always like to start out, like we have your formal introduction, but
Sure.
I always like to start out the program. Just if there's something you could want to share with our listeners, something, and I don't know if you have an unusual talent or something people might not know about you apart from the work you're doing on parenting.
I was just inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's an accomplishment.
It is. I wish it was for my kicks and punches. And it was actually because of the work I've been doing with traumatized children, children who've been trafficked, children who are suffering from mental health issues, ADHD. They are always a special, unique, and near and dear clientele audience to my heart. And having been one of those kids and working with those kids and teaching them martial arts has always just been a cornerstone of my passion and my martial arts training. And I was recognized for it in 2022. Never, ever thought I would, that martial arts has taken me around the world and then ended up back in a big conference room, getting a nice plaque and shaking the hands and meeting some of the greatest martial artists on the planet, MMA fighters, legends in the martial arts industry, something that I've adored since I was 12 years old. So, it was something, and I'm honored. I'm blown away. I'm still surprised, but I'm flabbergasted, quite frankly. But here it is. I got a plaque on the wall. It's awesome.
There you go. That's great. How exciting. And that too connects back into the work you've been doing. I think everyone, even folks like me who do not have children, recognize that parenting is really hard. But when parents have children who are struggling, it's almost harder for them seeing their kids struggle than if they were struggling with a problem of their own. So why do we struggle so much when our children are going through a difficult time and trying to figure out how to help them?
Whether we've struggled or not as parents with our parenting, and whether we've struggled or not when we were kids, it's really hard to understand what someone who's currently in crisis, what they're going through. We step into a different mindset. We use a different part of our brain when we are struggling. If we have added drugs or self-harm, depression, anxiety, any mental health issue, that brain chemistry is compromised. And so we stand on the outside of not just understanding, but consciously knowing what they are going through. We can we can sympathize, but it's very hard to empathize. Now, being someone who is extremely ADHD my whole life, having gone through the struggles as a kid, as an adult, still experiencing my ADHD tendencies, calling them my superpowers, but sometimes it's my kryptonite. I ran a school for children with ADHD. A massive percentage of the kids who came through our programming when we ran a treatment center were ADHD. And you still find yourself struggling as a parent, as a mentor with a child who has ADHD, even though you have it. And that's because you are not your child's mind. Why does my kid do this? Why are they doing? Don't they understand? Aren't they? What were they thinking when they weren't? Mm-hmm. And when we try to employ logic to understand insanity, it's the same as trying to employ conscious, deliberate outcomes to the concept of chaos. Chaos has no outcome. That's why it's chaos. There's no rhyme, reason. There's no logistical quantum container for chaos. And that's what it's like when we're dealing with addiction, mental health issues, ADHD, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia. We're trying to understand something that is not meant to be understood. So how do we parent? If logic isn't going to work, and I say this to parents I've worked with now for 20 years, here you are arguing with a teenager. They're struggling with drugs. They're struggling with behavioral issues. They're struggling with the fact that their brain isn't fully developed. And on top of that, they might have mental health issues. And we, as adults with fully developed brains, are arguing with them. Whoa, what? Like if my child's nervous system is shot and they're on drugs and they're making terrible decisions and I'm arguing with them, who really is the crazy one? The kid who's struggling or the adult who's arguing with them? That's what I mean. And we can step back out of the chaos that's ensuing and say, boy, Aaron is right. This doesn't make any sense. But that's still stepping out from it. When you're in it, it is wrecking your nervous system. And when your nervous system collapses, when your own child is suffering, you are not in what we call your wizard brain. You're in your lizard brain. Lizard behavior is fight, flight, freeze, faint, fornicate, and feed. Those are the 6 concepts of survival behavior. That is a lizard's life. That is your limbic brain. And when your child has attempted suicide, the ability to make really good parenting decisions has been compromised by your own brain chemistry. So our best parenting from our worst state of mind, which is fatigue, fury, and fear, is our worst parenting. Our best parenting from our worst state of mind is our worst parenting. Our worst parenting from our best state of mind, prefrontal cortex, thinking, rational, logical, loving. Our worst parenting from that part is better parenting. So we're using the wrong part of our brain when we parent a child who's struggled. And that's why we're struggling as parents. We are using the wrong part of our brain. I should have probably just said that at the beginning and stopped talking.
So then when that's where you're at, you're in the wrong part of your brain, but you still want to help your child, you're still dealing with the situation. So how should you try to approach it knowing that you're probably not in the best frame of mind to be dealing with it?
And there's your first answer, right? Is knowing that you're not in the frame of mind to be dealing with this. That is the first answer. The ability to say that instead of reacting means we are in our prefrontal cortex. Now, the tools that I teach parents, the same tools that I teach a child who's suffering from addiction, a child who's struggling to turn their ADHD into a strength and a superpower, are the same skills we teach parents, and that is recognizing when you're in the struggle. If you are not sleeping, if you are not eating, if you are not drinking enough water, if you are not moving your body, and if you are not breathing on purpose, you are struggling. Your body is struggling. Your brain chemistry is struggling. You see, that is the part 2, is 1 through 5, right? First thing is, oh my gosh, I'm struggling. Second thing is, did I get good sleep last night? Have I eaten healthy food today? Am I drinking enough water? Have I moved my body? Have I stopped for 1 second, 10 seconds, 200 seconds? I don't care. And started breathing on purpose. Those are the 5 free things we can do to improve our brain chemistry. Right there in a moment. Stopping to say, instead of yelling at my kid who's struggling, I'm going to drink a glass of water. You are in your prefrontal cortex. Now, beyond the self-care piece, which must always come first, then the rest of the stuff becomes tools, tactics, techniques, tricks. Say this to your kid, not that. Do this, not that. Delay the consequences. Front load your conversation and then have the conversation. Do a needs assessment. These are all things that we teach, and they're wonderful tools. But Kim, what you and I are talking about is giving tools to someone who has no training in carpentry. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. Parents want tools. They want results. And so they go onto YouTube, they listen to Erin, and they do the tools first, and they do the self-care when they have time. And you got to do the self-care first, because if you put a Sawzall into the hands of someone who hasn't slept well and they're furious at their child, are they going to do good or evil? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the conversation we have to have. So you actually named it. Recognize that you are not in the place to make a decision or to solve this problem. Some problems must be solved with 911. Your child has said, if you take my phone away, I'll kill myself. Call 911. This is not a place for you to try to employ rational logic and to have a conversation with the child who's threatened bodily harm and their own lives because you want to consequence them by removing something that's causing problems in the household. And their response is completely insane. You need professional help right now. And maybe your kid was just threatening. Maybe that's true. But then that child needs to understand the consequences of a threat of that magnitude. Because what comes farther down, and what parents want to start with, is consequences. Well, this will give me the result I'm looking for. If the consequences don't hurt, the consequences don't matter. And so your child threatens suicide. There are very clear consequences that need to take place in a situation like that. But what we do out of fear is we try to talk it through. That's fine after you call 911. But make sure the professionals are on the way. And if this child's serious, no, they're just looking for attention. Yep. Are you giving it to them? Are you giving the right kind of attention? Or now in your terror, are you negotiating your child's life with someone who is willing to leverage it? That's where danger comes in. Mm-hmm. 100 times you might be right. Your child might just be saying this to get you to change your mind. Emotional manipulation. 100 times you might be right. I work with parents who were wrong.
I was going to say, you don't want to take that risk that that one time you're wrong.
That wrong never goes away. That is a lifetime devastation. It's not something you get over. It's something you learn to live with. And it's hard.
But I think you brought up an important point that the parents, their self-care, that they really need to do that. Is kind of, the classic, if you're in a plane and the oxygen mask comes down, put it on you first and then put on your child's. That unless you're in that 911 situation, obviously you just deal with it.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, when I was in the EMT, the first thing they taught us is never run to the accident. And I remember watching a rollover accident take place. And I jumped out of the car. I grabbed my EMT kit and I went running towards the car that was upside down. I heard a woman shouting. There was smoke coming from the engine of the car. And I ran and did not see the barbed wire fence that had collapsed. And it hit me right in the upper thighs. It flipped me over onto my back and tore through my jeans and through my skin, knocked all the wind out of me. And now I'm going to go help. Now I'm good. Yeah, I've got open wounds and I'm going to go help someone who is just in a rollover accident. That's bodily fluid transfer. and I can't breathe. So now my brain's not getting enough oxygen, and I'm going to go make life-saving decisions. The same concept applies with our parenting. Where are you making your decisions from? Mm-hmm. If you're afraid, if you're furious, if you are fatigued, your brain chemistry, this is not like about willingness. You're not willing to make good decisions. That's not what we're talking about. And that's how parents take this feedback. And I get it, because it's the same feedback parents are giving to their kids when they say, why are they making these stupid decisions? And they're using drugs despite the consequences. They've been kicked out of school. They have a minor in possession charge. There's a truancy officer involved. Now, why are they making these decisions? Because their brain chemistry is compromised. That's why. Mm-hmm. Same reason why you shouldn't parent when you're fatigued, furious, or fearful. Your brain chemistry is compromised. You're not going to make your best decision. You can't accidentally be a good parent. That's the thing that we weren't told. And we were raised by parents who did things well and did things poorly, but largely unconsciously. Our parents were in reaction to their own upbringing, and so were we, and so are our children. At some point, the legacy of unconscious parenting is cracked by self-care. That's the key. What does taking care of yourself first look like? And this it's hard. That's an easy thing to say and a hard thing to do. But I will tell you, after practicing it with my own two children, I have a 27 and a 28-year-old. Both are married. One's got a kid on the way. I now see my children prioritize self-care. When things are hard, you know what they do? They hit the gym. When things are hard, you know what they do? They make sure they get a good night of sleep. They breathe. They sit down. They have a cup of tea. They take a minute. And it only takes a minute. It only takes a second for you to get back into your prefrontal cortex. Let me give you another example, because this one answers, why are my children struggling? Why do they do the things they do? So this is 101, cost payoff. The payoff to the behavior is higher than the cost. There, I just explained all human behavior in one very quick statement. They're doing drugs. I can tell you, and this is what I tell my teenage and young adult clients. The reason why weed is dangerous is because it works. My addiction was to cannabis. That was my addiction. And the problem with it is that it worked. It gave me everything I needed. And that's the second key, right? If the first key is cost and payoff, as long as the payoff is greater than the cost, the behavior will continue. Now, that bespeaks of coming up with creative consequences that inflate the cost of the choices and the results. The second layer is everything we do in life, every decision we make is to fulfill a basic human need. And there are 5 of them: safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. So your kid is smoking pot, your kid's cutting themselves, your kid has threatened suicide, your kid has run away, or you have done these things, or your spouse has done these things, whatever. The analysis is which one of those 5 needs was met by the behavior: safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. This is where psychology begins. This is where therapy begins, right? I was born and never met my biological father. Connection, safety, terrible twos. I'm throwing a fit in the supermarket because I'm not getting the sugary cereal. I haven't eaten since breakfast. I'm having a sugar crash. My body's craving that boost, and mom won't buy it for me, so I throw a tantrum. Power. That is fulfilling the need of power. Can I act in a way that makes mom do what I want to do? When mom and teenager, when dad and teenager are yelling at each other, it's a power struggle. Mm-hmm. And it's fulfilling the need of power. Safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. The behavior that you are upset with, which need is it fulfilling? You answer that question and you have solved a major problem. And here's the major problem you have just solved. You are now in your prefrontal cortex, whereas before you were in survival mode. We think that answering that question is suddenly going to give us all these wonderful skills to help our child. No, it doesn't matter. What matters is you're now thinking. You're now responding. You're not reacting. Mm-hmm. And that process got you to take a second to go, God, I hate these kids' friends. Why does she hang out with those people? Yeah, why? Well, connection, power, safety. And nobody survives alone. We'll get eaten by the saber-toothed donkey if we go to the bathroom or sleep or eat alone in our caves. So we surround ourselves with a crowd. And this crowd your daughter's hanging out with fulfills needs of power. Maybe the way they act make them all feel powerful or just connected or free from all the rules that the parents are setting. Whatever. Safety, power, connection, freedom, worth. You have one of 5 or multiples of those 5 as why your child is doing the things they do and why you parent the way you parent. You answer that question and you're in your prefrontal cortex. Ta-da! Magic. You are not in survival mode anymore.
And where do you see, I mean, just in talking to friends, when their kids are having issues, and what I hear them say is, what have I done wrong?
Yeah.
What could I have done differently to prevent this from happening? And how do you see that playing into the work you do with the parents?
So here's what's great. Them asking that question fulfills what need? Safety, power, connection, freedom, or worth. See, everything we do fulfills a need. Me saying, what did I do wrong? And I ask somebody else that, and I said, you've done nothing wrong. Or they say, it doesn't matter what you've done. Your child has their own choices they got to live with. Or they say, well, you were a single parent. Or, well, you smoked when you were pregnant. Or, well, who cares what the answer is? But the question itself facilitates need fulfillment. The answer facilitates need fulfillment on the part of the person who gave you the answer. This whole process is need fulfillment. And it serves to do nothing more but to get you out of survival mode and get you into your prefrontal cortex so you can make a decision from a good place instead of a bad place. So is it necessary? Absolutely. Ask your friends. Join a support group. Get online. I have a free Facebook group called Parenting Teens That Struggle. Get online and join it. Ask that question to everybody. Get 42 answers from different people, different answers or the same. And just know that the whole purpose of that pulled you out of survival mode. That's it. That's all now. Go come up with a consequence. Make a decision from that place. It will be better than the one you were going to make when you were really pissed off. Scared, exhausted. Your kid run away in the middle of the night. You haven't slept. Don't make a decision. Don't try to figure out why this is happening. Not now. That's the worst time to do it. Now they come home. You go, okay, good. You're home. Yes, you're mad. Yes, you holler at them. This happens. Be real. It happens. You don't have to be some saint or angel parent. That doesn't work. What has to happen if you screw up as a parent is that you have to show your child how to apologize. We call this the damaging admission. It's a tactic I teach. Here's a list of everything I wish I had done wrong as your parent. Or here's a list of everything I did wrong as your parent and what I wish I had never done. And you read it to the kid. You give it to them in the letter. You give them all the animal. You call out the elephant in the room. You give them the whole list. Will they use it against you? Maybe. But that's because their brain chemistry is compromised. What they really want is connection with your authentic self. And what they really want you to do after you give them the list of everything you did wrong as a parent is for you to do something different. I mean, that's what we want them to do, right? So show them how. Show them how.
So, Aaron, tell us a little bit more about the camps that you're doing and some of the speaking and things that you do really around the world to try to help parents.
A lot of the talks that I do all over the world are just try to continue to invoke consciousness. And what martial arts has taught me is that we have 2 opportunities when things go awry, violently awry. Metaphorically or physically. My 3 hobbies in life are martial arts, outdoor survival, and emergency medicine. If you're clever, I've just told you everything that's wrong with my psychology. I do not trust the world. I do not trust life. I do not trust other people. And so I got my needs fulfilled with being able to trust myself in very desperate situations. Now I teach other people to do that. So whether I'm talking to a group of adults, a group of teenagers, for example, in December, I'll be teaching teenagers at an event that teaches them how to invest in real estate. And I'm going to be teaching them other life skills and what to do when their friends are suicidal because when your friend calls you up and says, I think I'm going to kill myself, what do you expect a 14-year-old to do? Think? when their best friend is suicidal? Should they be thinking, what would you do if your child said that they were going to kill themselves? Would you think? Would you be logical? Or would you be terrified? What do you do when you're terrified? What do you do when you're scared that your kid's struggle is going to cost them their life, their freedom, their safety, their power, their connection, their worth? Well, we got to do that. Just like martial arts, when someone takes a swing at your head, you got to know what to do. And there are two opportunities you have: muscle memory or being able to think in a crisis situation. Those are the two things you have. So you either train and habituate your behavior to do, and I got to be honest, that's largely my response. When a parent calls me and says, my kid's in an acute psychological unit because they tried to kill themselves last night and they're telling me I got to come pick them up. My insurance won't pay. And the psychiatrist said they have to go to a treatment center and they can't go back to school because they're using and selling drugs. My brain kicks into thinking mode because I've had that phone call 300, 400 times with parents. This is the first time you've made it to me. So obviously you're terrified, scared. So this is what we do. These camps is these events, my podcast, the experts that I interview, the Parenting Teens That Struggle page on Facebook, my parenting masterclass is all about teaching you how to respond instead of react. Because responding means that you've analyzed the terrain, the weather, the size of the situation you're facing. Some of the things that parents respond to are just not big enough to garner the response the parents are giving. And my rule is if it's not going to matter in 5 years, it doesn't matter now. That's just my rule for life. So what matters now? And if it matters now, then how could we make it worse? All right, whatever we came up with in that list, don't do that. How could we make it better? Well, first of all, can we make that decision from the space we're in? So that's what I teach. The kids camps, I have it's called Kids Warrior Camp. It's run out of Texas, in Austin, Texas. We do that every year. I do one-on-one work with families. I consult families who are in crisis. I teach coaches and people who are parent coaches or want to be parent coaches how to be a crisis coach. I teach martial arts instructors how to work with children who are dealing with really intense issues. Like I said, being trafficked. How do you teach martial arts to a girl to be trafficked who's been trafficked? Like that's a careful navigation because you can make it worse and you can make it better. And no martial artist wants to make it worse. We want to solve the problem very quickly. And that's what's in our hearts as martial arts instructors. So really the prime work that I'm focused on now is speaking at schools, talking to parents one-on-one, or talking to couples who are together or separated, and just navigating the crisis that they're dealing with, just talking them off their ledge so they can talk their kids off their ledge. It's intense work, but it's what I was bred for. That's what my ADHD brain can handle. When it all goes to higgledy-piggledy, when the poop hits the fan, that's where my brain goes, I'm home. And that's the gift of being ADHD. I can handle chaos.
Well, that is a gift. So many folks cannot handle chaos. So that is truly a gift. Do you have suggestions for us if it's not my child that's in crisis, it's my best friend, it's my sister, if we're trying to support a friend or a loved one who is dealing with struggles with their child, do you have suggestions on how to provide that support? Because I feel like sometimes we want to be supportive and we're not sure how, and then sometimes we end up just saying or doing the wrong things.
That's a wonderful question. I have to say, in all this time, nobody's ever asked me how to be a good ally to a parent who's struggling. So I love this question. And the answer is very simple. If you're with them physically, go for a walk. Get outside and go for a walk. Get them out of the environment and just go for a walk. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. Take water bottles with you when you go. Drink water while you're walking. Remind them to, hey, take another drink of water. You're literally lubricating their brain and moving their body and getting blood flow out of their survival limbic brain. Go to the gym with them. Let them sit on the phone and vent with you. But when they're doing that, tell them to step outside for a second while they're venting. to just change their environment. If they're calling you and they're in that, we call it the effa, when they're going and they're hyperventilating, crying, chest breathing, ask them, tell me 5 things you see right now, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can taste. That series of questions, 3 of those, them giving you 3 answers out of those 5 means they're in their prefrontal cortex again. Your job as an ally is to get them out of survival mode, even if it's just for a second. Letting them know they'll be going back into it. Letting them know that the crisis isn't over, but that when the crisis happens, you'll go for a walk with them. You'll talk with them and just remind them. Sleep, water, nutritious food, moving your body, breathing on purpose. Any one of those 5 things you can remind them or facilitate with them as an ally helps them. Not trying to think. You should say this. You should say that. We're dealing with children whose brains are not functioning properly. You could scream at them about boiled broccoli or about the results of long-term drug use. When the brains are not functioning, what you are saying doesn't matter. And that's so hard for parents to hear. That is so hard to say. You printing up all those web pages or finding all those podcasts or influencers that are going to try to talk your kid out of using drugs is not helping your kid. I know you think information helps. It doesn't. Why? Because their brain is compromised. You still think they're doing whatever they're doing because that's all they're willing to do. I'm telling you, this is what they're doing because right now, that's all they're capable of doing. Willingness and capability. That's what we're up against here. Are you willing to be a good parent? Great. Are you capable of it? I don't know. Have you slept? Have you drank enough water? Have you eaten enough food? Have you moved your body? Are you breathing on purpose? Because you cannot be a capable parent accidentally. You can always be a willing parent. It's the same with being a teenager.
And so then is the goal to help your child, your teen, to be capable? Like they may be
willing. Both. Right now, I've got a kid who I've worked with for many, many years. He's really struggling with cannabis use. He is willing to be sober. Now, everybody who has ever lived with addiction understands why I paused after he is willing to be sober. Because one of the greatest shameful experiences of being an addict, and I was an addict for 14 years, is being willing to be sober. To wanting to be sobriety, to knowing what you're missing, to having read all of the articles that your mom or dad printed out for you, to listen to all your dad's lectures, to having dealt with all your mom's consequences, and you are totally willing to be sober, but you're not capable of it. Tell me it's a choice. Tell me that what happened to me is a result of my choosing. I'll agree with you, and then I'll tell you how you're wrong. I was sexually assaulted as a child. I grew up without a father. I am very ADHD. The first time I smoked weed, I was home. Every day in my life, I was suicidal. When I was sober, I was suicidal. When I was high, I was happy. Because that's what cannabis does to the brain. It copies the chemical anandamide. And that feels like home, like comfort. It is a neuromodulator that allows my brain to settle down after intense emotional experiences. That's what anandamide does in your brain. Cannabis, THC molecule, copies that. And so I felt great when I was high. I had a daughter, I had a wife, I had a property in the beautiful Colorado mountains, and I was ready to kill myself. Now, I had a lot of people telling me I should get sober. For my wife, for my kid, for my job, for my life. But what we're not understanding is the capability concept. I was willing, but the moment I stopped smoking pot, I wanted to die. Because I was an abandoned, sexually assaulted ADHD kid So tell me I should stop smoking pot. Give me all the articles on why it's better for my health. I still suffer the effects to this day of how much cannabis I used in those days. I'm still dealing with it. 25 years sober, I'm still dealing with it. I face my addiction on a daily basis. Tell me I should stop smoking when the moment I do, I'm ready to kill myself. This is the part we miss when we say they're making bad choices. No. There's no such thing as a bad choice. There is need fulfillment, and it's a risky way to get these needs fulfilled. And that's hard to understand when you're really pissed off, you haven't slept, and you are terrified that your child is going to make life worse.
And then how do you help them? If they are willing, then how do you help them bridge that gap of being willing to being capable given those kinds of facts?
And that's the 90 and 90 work, right? That's going to an NA room or an AA room, 90 days in a row. What you have to do is very strategically, sometimes therapeutically, sometimes through skilled coaching, is little by little, as their body gets better at handling it, you have to prepare them for a lifelong change, and you have to prepare them to face the consequences they've been avoiding. And they can be emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, or financial consequences. All those bank accounts have equal detriment to the psyche. So you have to prepare them for change. That's the other thing. Motivation is easy. You can motivate a person to change in a minute, but the discipline and maintenance of change takes a lifetime. And so you've got to prepare the body for change, or the change won't last. Oh, it's New Year's. I'm going to join a gym, and it lasts till February 14th because you have not prepared your body to change. So we shock the body with good intentions. We get an initial dopamine rush, and then we start to miss the things that we got, the payoff to not going to the gym. Our bodies were not sore when we didn't go to the gym. The comfort food that we relied upon was altering our brain chemistry. And now we're going to the gym and only eating salad, and our body's in shock. Change is not easy. And permanent change means you have to do the same thing for 90 days and then maintain it from there forward until it's a neural pathway. If I can, let me explain change like this. When you look at a mountain from a distance, you can see where the water runs because the water carves the mountain. That's change, right? The Grand Canyon, carved by water, stone carved by water, is the same way that neural pathways work. A continuous flow of information from one point to another point that has found the easiest downhill path. All right? And that's how water flows downhill. And so we look at this habit and we say, we got to change it. But we're looking at something that's carved into rock. We're looking at a neural pathway. And to say, you can't do this, you're causing your family all this grief and you're ruining your life, and that doesn't carve a new path into the rock. That is not a new neural pathway. That's not how they're made. What they're made from is the brain experiencing consequence from it flowing a different way. So when the Grand Canyon experiences consequence for its pathway, then it will change. And look at how long that change is going to take. You can't dig an irrigation ditch to the Grand Canyon and call it change. This is something that has been developed through time. Same way as behaviors. So you got to dig daily. You got to dig slowly. The person has to be willing to dig every day. They have to be capable of digging. And ultimately, the change starts to happen. The young student that I'm working with who has a real issue with cannabis. Now there's consequences to the behavior that the parents have to uphold. This child wants something and is planning to do something that is going to cost the parents financially. So now we're talking about the parents saying, you pay for it first and we'll put that money in escrow. And if you do it successfully, we'll pay you back. Now the cost has been passed on to the child. Right? And you go to the gym. You got to get your body in shape. You got to get your body in shape. The parents are very focused on, they got to be healthy. They got to get their body in shape. They're right. The depression will subside. If you exercise, dopamine will start to produce in the brain after about 3 months of daily exercise. The dopamine will become habituated in its production. But the first time you go to the gym and you work out so intensely, you get that wonderful dopamine rush and you're like, yes. And you go back the next day and it's awesome. And then the third day, your body aches. Well, now you have found the consequence to your behavior and your brain is designed to avoid consequence. And so we're going to go back to old habits right away. Why? Because they feel good. That's why. Because weed works. That's why. Because cutting myself when I'm depressed works. That's why I do it. So why do they do the things they do? Because it works. And that's the hard part, is you got to teach them the other working ways that are harder. Here's, if I have a moment, please. I know we're using a lot of time. I have asked teenagers why they smoke since I started working with them, because you can't find a child who doesn't know the dangers of nicotine. It's been plastered on the walls of their school since kindergarten. We know it. There's commercials on TV, on YouTube, everywhere. Smoking is bad. It'll kill you. So why do they smoke? This is what the teenagers say to me. Well, I get to take a break from my life. I go outside and, I get to hang with a group of people for a minute. Safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. Safety. I get to take a break from my life. Now they're safe. Power. Okay. I want everybody who's listening to think about, why does smoking make you powerful? Connection. I already said they're hanging out with their friends. Freedom. I get to take a break from my life. Worth. Why does smoking cigarettes give you worth? And we could say to the kids, you could accomplish all that by hiking. Yep. But that's work. And my brain avoids work. When I can smoke a cigarette and get all my needs met in seconds, why would I take 2 hours and go on a hike? And do I have a parent that models that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, Beyond Risk and Back.
I have recently found out that Beyond Risk and Back, which is a parenting show for parents of teens that are struggling, is in the top 3% globally for parenting podcasts.
Well, congratulations.
I just found that out. Thank you very much. We're huge in Australia for some reason. I have no idea why, but if any of my Australia audience is listening, thank you. It is 260 episodes deep. I've never done a show by myself, just ranting about what I think. It is expert after expert after expert on everything parents have gone through with their teenagers and their children. These are the super smart people, and I have done nothing but learn from them. You can find Beyond Risk and Back in any place you get your podcasts. I release shows weekly. I love the show. I have learned more from listening to these experts one-on-one and having my questions answered. And it's free. It's free support for families. So put me on when you've dropped your kids off to school, or when you're doing dishes or mowing the lawn. Let's have a conversation about what we can do about our kiddos. And if you need it, there's a free Facebook page called Parenting Teens That Struggle. I also do have a parenting masterclass that I priced at $99. It's 56 classes. It's everything I have ever taught parents. Some of the classes are 5 minutes long. Some of them are 50 minutes long. It's everything I've ever taught parents. I keep it at $99 because I want every parent to be able to afford it. And that's at brabapp.com, BRABAPP.com. That's where the parenting course is, Parenting Teens That Struggle on. So I've got Brab app for the course, Parenting Teens That Struggle for a free support group that is private on Facebook, and Beyond Risk and Back is my podcast.
Great. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all this information and how parents can follow up and get some additional support from you and find you on Facebook and your podcast and all those locations. This is just so important. We love our kids. We want to do the best for them. And when we struggle, it's so wonderful to have the kind of support you're providing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to your audience. I appreciate that.
Thanks to all of you for listening. We will have information on our website as well, the information that Aaron just gave you, but also other information about and resources for parenting for this month of September on our website. And we'll continue on next week with another episode that discusses parenting. So please join us for that. And we hope that the information we're providing helps you to navigate your life with vision loss.